as usual, with a short mindful breathing to quiet our mind. Then we can reflect, contemplate, life in samsara is not easy. So we have to learn how to make it less miserable. How can we manage better? While in samsara, still how we can have, within the samsara, how we can have more peace, more calmness, more serenity. Otherwise, it will drive us crazy. Make extremely miserable than it should be. And the way to do is work with our mind. That is the only way to keep more peace, calm, stability. And that is the reason why we're trying to practice the Dhamma. To develop that kind of more calm mind, more stable mind, more positive mind. And so then eventually that we can free totally and completely from the samsara itself, permanently. And not only just for ourselves, but in order to also lead and liberate all sentient beings also from the ocean of samsara. To the other side of non-abiding nirvana or fully enlightenment. And to do that, may I be able to achieve that fully enlightenment as soon as possible. I will try all my best as much as possible to achieve that. And for that, we need to develop all the Lam-Rim realizations from the beginning of Guru devotion to the union of no more learning, and especially the highest level of wisdom and Bodhicitta mind. For that, we need to practice, meditate consistently. Life after life. Not only just one lifetime, but life after life. And to be able to practice consistently, we need to be reminded, be encouraged, be inspired, and continue to study. And that is why we have come here together. Okay. I prostrate to the Aryatable gem, thus did I hear one time the Bhagavan was dwelling on the mass of Vulture's mountain in Rajgriha together with a great community of monks and great community of Buddhists. At that time, the Bhagavan was observed in the concentration on categories phenomena called profound perception. Also at that time, the Bodhisattva Mahasatva Arya Avalokiteshvara look upon the very practice of profound perfection of wisdom and beheld those five aggregate also as empty of inherent nature. Then through the power of the Buddha, the Venerable Shariputra said this to the Bodhisattva Mahasatva Arya Avalokiteshvara: how should any son of the lineage train who wish to practice the activities of profound perfection of wisdom? He said that, and the Bodhisattva Mahasatva Arya Avalokiteshvara said this to the Venerable Shariputra: Shariputra, any son of the lineage or daughter of the lineage who wish to practice the activity of profound perfection of wisdom should look upon it like this, correctly and repeatedly, beholding the five aggregate also as empty of inherent nature. Form is empty, emptiness, form, emptiness not other than form, form is also not other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, discrimination, compositional factor, and consciousness are empty. Shariputra, likewise, all phenomena are emptiness without characteristic, unproduced, unceased, stainless, not without stain, no division, no fulfilled. Shariputra, therefore, in emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no discrimination, no compositional factor, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no visual form, no sound, no odor, no taste, no object of touch, and no phenomenon. There is no I element, so on up to and including no mind element and no mental consciousness element. There is no ignorance, no extinction of ignorance, so on and up to and including no aging and death, and no extinction of aging and death. Similarly, there is no suffering, origination, cessation, and path. There is no exalted wisdom, no attainment, also no non-attainment. Shariputra, therefore, because there is no attainment, both sort of rely on dwelling the perfection of wisdom, the mind without obscuration and without fear. Having completely passed beyond error, they reach the end point of nirvana. All the Buddhas who dwell in the three times also manifestly completely awaken to the unsurprised, perfect, complete enlightenment and relying on the perfection of wisdom. Therefore, the mantra of perfection of wisdom, the mantra of great knowledge, the unsurprised mantra, the mantra equal to the unequal, the mantra that truly pacifies all suffering, should be known as truth since it is not false. The mantra of perfection of wisdom is declared, Tayata Gade Gade, Paragade, Parasam Gade, Bodhi Soha. Shariputra, the Bodhisattva master should train in the profound perfection of wisdom like that. Then the Bhagavan arose from the concentration and commanded the Bodhisattva master Avalokiteshvara, saying, well said, son of the lineage, is like that, it is like that. One should practice the profound perfection of wisdom just as you have indicated. Even the Tathagatas rejoice. The Bhagavan having thus spoken, the Venerable Sharitidi Putra, the Bodhisattva master Avalokiteshvara, and those surrounding the entirety, along with the rules of the gods, humans, asura, and Gandharva overjoy and highly praise that spoken by the Bhagavan. Sa shi be ge chon she me to ta re ra le shi ye de gen ba de sang ge shin do mi de o wa yo gun nama da shin che ba jo e dam guru rana mandala ga ne ataya mi. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merit I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentience. Sangye Jodan Soge Sonam Changju Bata. Tage Shege Be Sonam Ge Dola Benje Sangye Doba. Sangye Jodan Soge Sonam Changju Bata. Tage Shege Be Sonam Dola Benje Sangye Doba. So today is the last of this Wednesday Lam-Rim class for this year. Even though I will be doing some couple of shorter sessions in November and December, but this particular Lam-Rim, that itself will be the last. And so, you know, we started with the greatest scope this year, you know. So again, the stages of the path, the gradual path, is, you know, maybe I thought I just wanted to kind of summarize a little bit, even though we have gone through all of that, and that, you know, in order to engage in the path, of course, we need a path that we are not familiar with, the path that we have not had experience in the past. Then, of course, we need someone to guide, someone to lead, someone to help. And so, therefore, it starts with the Guru devotions, where finding the right qualified guru or teachers, and having found the qualified, authentic teachers or the guru, and then receiving the teachings, and the path, receiving the teachings, you know, and once having received the teachings, then applying the teachings, integrating into that. So once you find it, then relying properly with the thought and actions. And the reason to do, to find and also rely properly is so that we can take those teachings into our everyday life, in our practice, integrate them. That is the purpose. And then in order to integrate that, the path, we have to do now, the practice, the path, the Dharma, the time to practice is now when we have this precious human life, because it's very rare to have such a precious human life with all the right conducive conditions, that we don't get such rebirth where all the conducive condition to practice the Dharma is there and free from all the obstacles to practice the Dharma. And so therefore, we have to make most of this precious human life by utilizing it to really engage into the path, to really practice the Dharma, to really make some progress on our spiritual path. And not only we need to do when we have this precious human life, because precious human life is rare, difficult to find again in the futures, and therefore, when we have this, the greatest opportunity now, we don't want to waste it and make most of it and make our life meaningful. And the way to make our life meaningful is to practice the Dharma, engage in the path, And not only we need to do while we have this precious human life, we need to do right now without postponing it. Because sometimes we feel we want to practice, but we keep on postponing on the basis that, with the belief that the time is on our side. But that is not true, because, death could come anytime. Death is definitely going to happen, but we don't know when it's going to happen. Every day, every hour, every minute, every second, so many people are dying all over the world. And all of them are not aware they are going to die this moment. They didn't expect they are going to die. Yeah, I just heard yesterday one of my auntie, my father's sister died. Again, unexpectedly, we heard she was sick a little bit and she recovered fully, and then everything seems fine, and then suddenly you hear, she's no more there, So it was kind of surprise, shock for everyone, because nobody was kind of expecting that, because we all have this kind of, grasping of permanent, that is not, it will not come today, it will not come this week, it will not come today, and that keep on coming, And so, but the reality, even though that's what our mind think, that is what our mind believe, but reality is that death is definitely coming, and we don't know when it's coming. It could come any moment. It could start any moment, to anyone, anytime, anywhere. So therefore, what is certain is death is certain. What is uncertain is when it's coming is uncertain. When, how, where. And so since we don't know that, and therefore we need to practice the Dharma immediately without postponing, because we don't know the time is whether time is there waiting for us in the future. And then we might just, and then we keep on postponing, and then suddenly time comes, and then we have a lot of regret, thinking, oh, I wish I had practiced before. And that is too late, And so we have practiced, even though we have not perfect, but we start practicing now. At least we have some imprint. At least we have some familiarity with the practice. And even something stuck us, even without having any higher realizations. But then we can continue to carry on. It's all the practice that we have done is not lost. We carry on all the imprint and to the next life. And we have a greater chance of having a higher rebirth. We have, and in that higher rebirth, we have a greater chance of meeting the right condition, better condition than this time. And we have the better chance, situation, environment to study the Dharma and to understand them more easily because of the imprint, and to be able to have realization more easily because of all the imprint and practice, familiarity that we have done. And so therefore, without any kind of that, but with that understanding, we need to practice the Dharma without delay, immediately in whatever way we can, So and at the time of the death and after the death, what really helped is the only Dharma, nothing else. Nothing else. And if there is nothing after the death, then again, maybe we shouldn't worry too much about futures, but even we leave the body behind, our consciousness continue and take a new form of life, carrying all the imprint, all the positive and negative imprint. And so therefore, it continues, and what kind of rebirth we have, high rebirth, low rebirth, more suffering, more happiness. It depends on our karmic imprint, karmic seeds or potential that is that we will be carrying with our consciousness. And if we have more stronger negative karma, stronger negative imprint, most likely we could have a rebirth in one of the lower rebirth. And if we have a rebirth in one of the lower states, then the suffering can be much more intense, and the opportunity to continue to practice the path become more difficult. The circumstances, the condition to practice the Dharma become much more difficult, much more challenging. Even in this life, which is supposed to be one of the best conditions to practice Dharma, we see it's not easy. Sometimes it's not easy. So imagine when we take a rebirth in much more state where the condition is much more challenging, much more difficult, and then not only we continue to experience the suffering, but then we continue to create more negative karma, less, and the opportunity to create more positive karma become less, and it become more and more challenging. And therefore, we want to make sure that we don't want to be born in one of those lower rebirths. And the way to, with that understanding, the situation of the lower rebirth, the suffering of lower rebirth, and the condition to practice the Dharma being minimum and very little and difficult, then with that understanding, then we develop a strong wish not to wanting to take a rebirth in such state. And then as a way to free ourselves from that, then we take a refuge to the Buddha Dhamma Sangha. And it's not enough just going for refuge to the Buddha Dhamma Sangha, but then once we have taken the refuge, then we have to live on the basis of the principle or the precept of the having taken the refuge, you know. And the precept is, you know, mainly, you know, refrain from 10 non-virtuous actions and engage in 10 virtuous actions, you know, in a kind of, you know, short, you know, basic, some of the basic, you know. And so trying to live our life on the value, on the principle, on the precept of trying to engage in 10 virtuous actions, trying to refrain from 10 non-virtuous actions, having taken or gone to the refuge to the Buddha Dhamma Sangha. And so if we live our life on the basis of engaging 10, on minimum level, on engaging 10 virtuous actions, refrain from 10 non-virtuous actions, then we can protect ourselves from being born in one of lower rebirth. Then we have kind of guarantee ourselves to have a better chance of having a higher rebirth when we live our life on the basis of those precepts and those values and those principles of the refuge. That is how the refuge protect us from the being born in lower rebirth. If we take refuge to the Buddha, but if we ignore totally all these precepts, it's not possible, you know. So the purpose of going to refuge to the Buddha Dhamma Sangha is actually really to actualize the Dharma within ourselves, you know, to actualize Dharma, the real protector, the actual protector, refuge is the Dharma, and actualizing that. And then become ourselves Sangha, and then gradually to become Buddha ourselves. And so therefore, when we have actualized the Dharma within ourselves, that is what really protects us. And even if we don't have the wisdom realizing emptiness, which is the main Dharma, the wisdom, but even if we have the practice of engaging 10 virtuous action and refrain 10 non-virtuous action, that will be the one which will protect us from such as a lower rebirth and so forth. So by going for refuge and then engaging into the practice of precept and principle, by reframing 10 non-virtuous action, engaging 10 virtuous actions, through that, and then even we are able to have a higher rebirth, such as human life, or God lamb, living God lambs. Even we are going to able to have that, still, as long as our rebirth is driven by karma and the delusion, still we are within the samsara. Still we are being controlled, our life, our existence is being controlled by something else. We don't have total control. It's controlled by the karma and the delusions. And as long as our existence, our life, our rebirth is controlled by our karma and delusions, we are bound to experience a lot of suffering and pain. The result of contaminated karma and delusions can't be happiness, true happiness. It is a suffering. And so therefore, you know, then we need to meditate on the nature of samsara, the nature of sufferings. No matter whether it is low rebirth or high rebirth, no matter which sixth realm you take rebirth, as long as we are in samsara, we are still not free from the suffering completely, permanently. Because we still have all the cause and conditions of the suffering, the delusion and the contaminated karma. And as long as we have that, we will continue to, and therefore, with that understanding, as we reflect how some being in samsara itself is a suffering, being under the control of something else, such as contaminated karma and delusion itself is a suffering. Then we started to feel strong aspirations, wanting to free from the samsara completely. Then you see, whether you are moved from one prison from the south to the north or north to the east to that, it is still prison. Some prisons, maybe there is a little bit more kind of what you call better conditions, and some prisons have much more worse, but still is a prison. Once you understand, no matter where you are born within the samsaric realms, it's still a prison. And then you want to free, when you really understand deeply and in a profound way, then we really develop a strong wish to free from the samsara. And when you have strong wish to free from the samsara, because you see samsara is miserable and suffering, no matter where it is, it's still prison. And then you begin to say, how can I do that? How can I do that? How can I free myself from that prison? And then we understand, if we can free ourselves from our contaminated karma and the delusion, then we can free from that prison of the samsara and the suffering of the samsara. Once we have that understanding, realizations. And so then you also develop strong wish not only to free from the prison of the samsara, but the very cause of that prison, the contaminated karma and delusion itself. And then true renunciations arises, the wish for the total freedom from the samsara it causes, and the wish inspired for real freedom, the liberation, the nirvana. And in order to do that, then you need to engage in the practice. In order to achieve that, then three higher training, the higher training of moral discipline, meditative concentration, and the wisdom, realizing the emptiness. And so that one is the middle scope, the practice of middle scope, renunciations, and the practice of three higher trainings. Up to that is before that is a small scope. And then again, even we achieve individual liberation or freedom and nirvana from the samsara, but again, as long as our kind mother sentient beings are suffering in the samsara, how can we kind of close our mind and ignore and pretend not to see them? And how can we be so okay with being just to have our own individual liberation and freedom, by understanding how sentient beings has been our most kind parents, grandparents, children's friends, not one time, many times in the past, and how they have been so kind. Um, and once we feel that through more contemplation, reflection, meditations, and then want to repay the kindness. And once we have the wish to repay the kindness, and feel very connected, close, then um, you wish them to have happiness, uh, naturally, um, and then that loving kindness comes. And when you see them suffering, you don't you wish them to be free from suffering. Compassion arises, and on the basis of that loving kindness and compassion, then um, is not understanding is not enough just to wish them to be happy and not to have suffering and free from the suffering. Just by wish, it doesn't solve their sufferings and make them more happy just by itself. So then you make a strong special attitude or universal responsibility that I will try all my best to free them from the suffering and lead them to the happiness myself, by myself. And then on the basis of that, once you have that special attitude or universal responsibility, and then we understand, as long as we ourselves are in samsara, as we ourselves are under the um, um, influence of the delusion, obscuration, not we can't, when we are unable to take care of ourselves, then when we are unable to free ourselves, how can we free themselves, other people's? When you don't know how to swim yourself, how can you help someone who is drowning to help them from drowning when you yourself doesn't know how to swim and both of you are drowning, And so then when you realize that, then as you analyze, how can I be able to help and benefit and free them? And then you realize, if I can become fully enlightenment, because that fully enlightenment has, due to that, um, incredible loving compassion and skillful means, free from all the obscurations and all of that. Then if you can achieve that enlightenment, then you can help and benefit to free the sentient being from the samsara, um, in a more skillful way, effect, limitlessly, day and night, all the time. And then, driven by that strong compassion, love for the sentient beings, and by understanding, with understanding the incredible qualities of the enlightenment, and if you can achieve enlightenment, how you can help and benefit them, then you the wish to achieve that enlightenment, driven by that compassion and the wish to achieve that, will come very naturally. And then that is how, when we have bodhicitta, once you have bodhicitta, then that is when we enter the Bodhisattva path, But still, even though we have entered the path, but still it is a long way before you can achieve the fully enlightenment. We have to go through the 5 paths, 10 bhumis, and that. And so while we are on the path, so then we need to engage in the, as Shantideva said, aspiring bodhicitta is like a wish to go. If you need to go somewhere, first you need to have the wish, but the wish itself is not enough. You need to actually start going. Otherwise, you will never reach where you want to go. Just the wish does not live there. Once you have that wish, then you started to go, whether you walk, drive, fly, whatever. And same thing once we have bodhicitta, that is aspiring bodhicitta, but it's not enough just aspiring. Then we need to engage into the bodhisattva path and practices on the path, path and 10 bhumis, and then engage in the practice of 6 perfections or 10 perfections, you know, and then throughout the 3 eons, then we engage in the practice of 6 perfections or 10 perfections, and accumulating the collection of true merit, you know, the collection of merit and wisdom, and through that, then we can really actually achieve that fully enlightenment. And so that is the great scope. And so we kind of went through we discussed through the 6 perfections, you know. So what are the 6 perfections? I hope you all remember them, okay? Those are some of the kind of the basic, the Mahayana teachings and essence and crucials. So you should be able to remember them, and they are not a lot, you know. And we just went through this year, okay? So it's not like you have studied 10 years ago. And so I think those are the things you should remember. What are those 6 perfections? Okay. And then within those 6 perfections, then especially at the end, then we were kind of going through the Lama Tsongkhapa, going more detail on the last 2 perfections, you know. So the perfection of shamatha and vipassana, or in other words, meditative concentrations and the insight, the wisdom, you know. And so that was where, and within that, we finished the meditative concentration, shamatha, karma abiding, whatever you call, and we have started the wisdom of special insight. And again, I think hopefully again you remember some of the main points from the karma abiding, special insight, you know. Karma abiding, special insight, we're still on there, you know. Again, these are the things that you have to remember, especially some of the main point and the main outline and the main points. You should try to, if possible, memorize, repeat time to time, think, you know. So we should have some, even if you don't remember each and everything in details, but you should be able to kind of have some understanding and remember some of the main outlines, important outlines. Even if you don't remember each of those sub outlines and that, but the main outline and some of the main important points. Otherwise, you know, after 6 months we have studied and it's close, and then when what you study this year, we study this, and what are those, and then I think it's in my book, it's in my notebooks, you know. So even though we cannot remember everything, but we should need to remember some of the important points, and the outlines, you know, is important. Especially when we are studying such text, you know, is important because we spend so much time studying, and then if we forget everything by the end, that will be a loss, and a big loss. And so again, within the shamatha, then or the karma abiding, we talk about the prerequisites or preliminary, what are the needs, and then the actual how to develop the shamatha or karma abiding itself. And we also before that also we went through why shamatha was so, or karma abiding or shamatha was so necessary, important, why it is important. In other words, the benefit of the shamatha, the benefit of shamatha, why is crucial, why we need to develop the shamatha, why it is important, why it is crucial, and then we spoke about that, because it is crucial because the cause of all our suffering now and throughout our beginner's lifetime in this samsara is our delusions. And the delusions are rooted in the fundamental ignorance. And so the way to overcome delusions is to overcome the fundamental ignorance, the root of those delusions. And to overcome that fundamental ignorance, the root of all the delusions, we need to develop the special insight, the wisdom, penetrating wisdom, the special insight. That is the direct antidote that can counteract. And in order to have special insight, then we need to have shamatha. Without shamatha, we cannot have the special insight. It's not possible. So that is why it's so important, because that wisdom of the special insight is so crucial to eliminate all the delusion by eliminating the very root of those delusions, fundamental ignorance. And to have that special insight, one cannot develop special insight without the shamatha, and therefore shamatha is extremely needed for that purpose, mainly for that purpose, even though it has so many other purposes, even though it has so many other benefits. If we talk about the benefit of shamatha, there could be, we could talk about many sessions, but the main one is to develop that special insight, because the main purpose of practicing the Dharma is to overcome the delusions permanently. And it's that wisdom, that special insight, that wisdom will allow us to help us to overcome the delusion permanently from the very root of it. And for that purpose, then we need the shamatha. And then, so we went through, I don't want to go all of them, like the 6 prerequisites or preliminary before shamatha. Then we also went about the benefit why we need to have shamatha. Then also we went through where Lama Tsongkhapa explained how to develop the shamatha, and within that, then Lama Tsongkhapa explained about how to develop shamatha from the point of view of overcoming the obstacles, the 5 obstacles to develop the shamatha by applying the 8 antidotes, overcoming the 5 faults or obscurations or interference to develop shamatha by applying the 8 antidotes, and then also through the 9 stages, and then through the 9 stages of the meditations, and then applying while we are engaging into the 9 stages of the meditations, shamatha, then applying the 6th power, and 4 engagement, mental engagement. And so we talk about the 4 mental engagement, the 6 power, and bringing, each of those power in relation to the 9 stages, or the 4 engagement in relation to the 9 stages. So those are the kind of the main point of the shamatha, all the things that we studies. Of course, we went because, from different sources of Indian sources, Tibetan masters, and then Lama Tsongkhapa, sometimes giving his own commentaries, interpretation, and sometimes he just quote from other sources. But basically, main point, these are the main point that we should try to remember, the five falls, the 8 antidotes, the 9 stages, and then with the 9 stages, applying the four engagement and the 6 powers, so those, and then another kind of important points within the shamatha, within the on the shamatha is to remember, and again Lama Tsongkhapa repeat again and again, and he went very, very thoroughly on that, is that the need, in order to develop the shamatha or calm abiding, the importance of stability and clarity and intensity, those 3 qualities. And again, and also if we can remember, treat the gross, subtle, and most subtle laxity, the gross and subtle and most subtle excitements, because those are the 2 obstacles, and so again, remembering what are those subtle, gross, subtle, and most subtle laxity, and what are the gross excitement or distractions, subtle and most subtle, and what are the antidotes towards them when we have gross, whether it's a gross laxity, what is the antidote, what is the practice to overcome that, and when there's subtle laxity, what is the practice, what is the antidote, what is the meditation to overcome that. When you have more subtle laxity, what is the practice, what is the meditation, what is the antidote. And when our mind is under the control of, when not laxity but excitement, when is there gross excitement, what is the meditation, the practice, the antidote to overcome that. And when we are under the control of subtle excitement, more subtle excitement, so knowing all of that, what are the different practices, what are the different meditations, the antidote. So those are the things that we need to remember, and then by applying them, by overcoming the laxity and the excitement, and trying to develop more stability with the object of our meditations. And not only there is stability, but also developing clarity. And when you say clarity, there's clarity in the object, clarity in the mind itself, the mind itself. And not only is there clarity, then there is the intensity. And that is another subtle point that Lama Tsongkhapa emphasized again and again, that intensity. Without that intensity, then sometimes meditator cannot differentiate between true shamatha and being in a very subtle laxity. Because when someone is very subtle laxity, they can still, in their meditation, they can still have the stability and clarity. They have the stability, clarity, but what is missing is that intensity, And so to have that intensity is important. So those three factors, stability, clarity, and intensity, those three important factors to develop true shamatha, is one of them. And then in order to have karma abiding shamatha, then not only you need to have that clarity, stability, clarity, and intensity, then also great bliss, And we talk about that, like when the 9 stages, when you reach 9 stages, still you have not achieved karma abiding with shamatha, Even you have stability and clarity and intensity, even the meditator can meditate with all of that for hours and days and maybe even weeks. Still they have not developed shamatha, karma abiding. In order to develop karma abiding shamatha, then on top of that, then one need to develop the the blissfulness, And so on the basis of that, then one develop the blissfulness, and then that is where one develop the real shamatha, karma abiding. So those are the kind of little bit kind of summary of the shamatha, karma abiding that we have spent many weeks on that. And then we have then started a special insight. And again, special insight, again, it start with the prerequisites or preliminary, what are the required prerequisite and or preliminary, and those are the crucial, And then also why we need to develop the special insight, So we went through that again, the importance of cultivating special insight, and then went through, more details why the special insight is needed, because in order to overcome the delusions and how delusions are rooted. We spoke a lot about how delusion are rooted in ignorance, and how that ignorance give rise to all the delusions. So we went that quite many pages, quite a few weeks. I think that is where very much emphasize on that. Is a crucial point to understand. Whether it's attachment, whether it's anger, and all other delusions, how they arises from the view of down story collections or self-grasping ignorance, so how that, then we went through all of that, and also we went through trying to differentiate between when we talk about self-grasping, then there is self-grasping of person and self-grasping of phenomena. There are 2 types, and also we try to Lama Tsongkhapa also try to differentiate between the view of down-story collections and the self-graspings, of the persons, I don't know whether you still remember, transitory, when we talk about transitory view, then it is the object of that. Of course, transitory view is the one of those self-grasping ignorance, but the object of that transitory view is either yourself or your mind. It has to be one of those objects. Okay. Whereas self-grasping of the person doesn't have to be that, because you can have a ignorance that's grasping, self-grasping of persons of someone else. Like for example, you have grasping of, inherently grasping of someone, another person's. That is a ignorance that is grasping, self-grasping of the persons, but is not the transcendental view of collection, because the object of that ignorance is the persons and is grasping inherently of self, but it is another person, And then also, we also discuss, Lam Tsongkhapa discuss about within the ignorance, there are two levels of ignorance, the innate level and the kundak, what was the word he was used? Fabricated. I don't know, fabricated was the right word it was used. In Tibetan is kundak. Is with the reasoning logic. With the reasoning logic, then you make up, So it's not innate, but you come with the reason why is permanent, why is inherent existence. So you, with that kind of a reasoning and logic, then your grasping gets even more stronger. And so that kind of, now I forgot what was the English word that was used. So there was basically two kind of ignorance, the innate ignorance and kunda, fabricated ignorance with the intellectual, with the reasoning that, and within those two acquired. Thank you, Angela. That was the way. Acquired ignorance. That was the word. Yeah, now I remember. Acquired ignorance. Yeah, and we kind of differentiate these two. And between those two things, two ignorance, the root of all the delusion and the samsara is not the acquired ignorance, but it's the innate ignorance. And therefore, we have to overcome that innate ignorance. So those are some of the things that and also Lama Tsongkhapa also make a distinguishing when we say mind, when we are talking the view of downstream collections, the ignorance with the view of downstream collections. And when you say the object of that is me or mine, but like my nose or my ear or my body, my mind, when the focus is in my body, my mind, ear, then that is not the transitory collection, because that become the ignorance, that is self-grasping of phenomena. So when we have that, when we set the transitory view, that is the object of that is mind. So the focus is on the self of the mind, instead of nose is mind. Instead of focus on the body, the focus is on the mind. And so, whereas when the self-grasping of phenomena, then the focus in the phenomena is the focus in the nose, the focus in the eye, the focus is on the body, the focus in the. So I think that was another points. I think that Lama Tsongkhapa met clarity and strength That I think maybe that is where, yeah. So I think that is more or less a little bit kind of summarizing the whole up to what we have been kind of discussing so far. So I guess maybe we are in page number 234, yeah? If I remember, I think that is it. 234.
Yes,
where it is, yeah? At the very beginning, the reason for that, so that is what it is saying. So here, it says, in order to abandon the apprehension of self, it's necessary to negate its conceived object. So Lam Tsong, here it says, we have to understand why that ignorance is mistaken. Why that ignorance is mistaken. In order to understand why that ignorance is mistaken, then we have to understand how that ignorance mistakenly apprehending the object. How, and through that, by understanding how that the object that ignorance is apprehending, grasping, is not there, the way ignorance apprehend. Even though ignorance apprehends the concept object to be inherently existent, but there is no inherently existing object. Once you understand that, then we know that ignorance, that mind is totally mistaken, totally wrong. And so therefore, by that understanding, then we, through meditation, we have to negate that apprehended objects. And that is by the ignorance, and that is the inherently existing objects, whatever that object is. Unless we negate that, then we cannot destroy the ignorance. And so therefore, Lama Tsongkhapa is saying, otherwise you can meditate on something else. Let's say Guru Deity, let's meditate on Deity, visualizations, or some other profound, that so-called profound, more profound practice. Generally speaking, some of those tantric practice, such as generation states like visualization and transforming dead in body, dead pardo and all of that, like generation states, let's say, like visualizations. They are supposed to be profound, but you can meditate on that if you don't have really, if you cannot destroy and you cannot negate the object that has been apprehended by ignorance. You can visualize, and your visualization can be great, still you will not be able to overcome the ignorance unless you are able to negate or destroy that object of that ignorance. And here, as at the very end of that, Lama Tsongkhapa says, because without the object of apprehension self having been negated, you may simply withdraw your mind off to its object, but that cannot be proceeded into selflessness, So maybe you might withdraw your mind from being, your mind from grasping or apprehending the objects, truly apprehending its inherently existing. You can withdraw from that, but that doesn't, means you have the realization of emptiness, you know. When you are in deep meditations, whether it's a visualizations or whether it's using your object of your meditation for in shamatha or similar meditations, you know, or deep visualizations, or using a breath or any other objects. So you are able to withdraw your mind from grasping the object inherently. At that time, your mind is not grasping the object inherently because you have withdrawn all the mind to that object. Deep meditations. But that doesn't mean that you are meditating on selflessness, emptiness, because that meditation is not negating the object that is being apprehended by the ignorance. So therefore, it cannot destroy the object that is being apprehended by the ignorance. And therefore, if we don't negate or destroy the apprehended object of the ignorance, then you cannot destroy the ignorance itself. And so that is where. And then Lama Tsongkhapa also explained next verses, you know, in terms of the apprehending, there are three different ways of apprehending the objects, you know, apprehending the objects as non-truly existence, apprehending the objects as truly existing, and apprehending the objects neither in between or neutral, in the sense it doesn't apprehend truly existing, neither it doesn't apprehend non-truly existence. You know, there are three ways that our mind can apprehend the objects, three different ways. And so if it's not apprehending truly existing, it doesn't mean it's apprehending non-truly existence. Do you get it? Are we getting it? If your mind is not apprehending objects as a truly existing, it doesn't mean your mind is apprehending the objects as non-truly existence. Do you get it? No? Confused? Because there are three possibilities. If you say, if you don't, your mind is not apprehending truly existent, and if it has to be apprehending non-truly existent, then there is only two possibilities, how our mind can apprehend the objects. But there are three different ways of apprehending the objects. Either your mind can apprehend the objects as truly existing, the object, or your mind can apprehend it as non-truly existent. These two are opposite. The mind which apprehends truly existing and the mind which apprehends non-truly existing, these are opposite, contradictory. But then there is a mind which is in the middle of that, which does not either apprehend truly or neither non-truly existence. Are we clear now? Still no? Our ignorance is the one which is apprehending the object truly existence. Okay? When you have a wisdom realizing emptiness, that mind is the mind that apprehends object non-truly existence, because that mind is the wisdom that realizes the emptiness is the mind that apprehends object truly existence, or empty of truly existence. However you feel it, non-truly existent or empty of truly existent. These two are opposite. But then there is a mind which does not neither, because, for example, our eye consciousness, you know, our eye consciousness does not apprehend the object truly existent and neither non-truly existence. Our bodhicitta mind does not exist objects as truly or neither non-truly existence. The bodhicitta mind is not ignorance, okay? Therefore, it does not apprehend the objects, the sentient beings truly existence. If it apprehends truly existence, then it becomes ignorance. but also it does not apprehend non-truly existent, because that bodhicitta is not the wisdom. So the bodhicitta mind and many other mind, it apprehend the object, but it does not neither apprehend inherently, neither it apprehend non-inherently. So there is three different way of apprehending the objects. Do you get it? Maybe you might want to think more if you are not getting it. Basically, and so with that, then Lama Tsongkhapa explaining that, so therefore, if you don't apprehend something as not truly existing, it doesn't necessarily mean your mind apprehend non-truly existence, because there's the third possible, many other minds in that third categories of that. And so therefore, yeah, that is what it means. Therefore, although you do not apprehend something as not truly existent, so for example, if you have compassion bodhicitta mind, that bodhicitta mind do not apprehend the objects as non-truly existence, it doesn't understand the objects as non-truly existent, okay? Apprehend something as non-truly. Although that is the case, you do not necessarily apprehend it as a truly existent likewise, because that bodhicitta mind also do not, even though it does not exist, even though it does not apprehend the objects as non-truly existent, but also it doesn't necessarily apprehend, it doesn't apprehend it as a truly existent as well, because otherwise it becomes ignorance. If it apprehend it is a truly existence, then that will be a wrong, mistaken mind, wrong mind, ignorant mind. Because even though there is no inherent existing object, it apprehends inherent existence, So I think that with that example, maybe you might be able to understand a little bit that. So again, then the next point on the B, on that, Lama Tsongkhapa, we have to understand the way ignorance apprehend is totally mistaken by understanding the object of apprehensions. Even though ignorant apprehend the object to be truly or inherently existence, in reality, there's no truly or inherently existing objects. Therefore, that mind that is apprehending truly or inherently existence is totally mistaken, totally wrong. So we have to have that. If we don't have that understanding, then it says, even we try to meditate on emptiness. Again, this is Lama Tsongkhapa coming again and again. I think in some other Lam-Rim, when they kind of, summarize those practice, there's 4 essential points, and the first essential point is identifying the object of negations. And so again, that is where with the importance of when we say selfless, we are negating the self. And so identifying the self to be negated, what is that self that is being negated? And that is when, if we don't understand that truly, then we miss the target, as we already mentioned before. And here the example given is, if you are looking for a thief, And thief has already run away in the forest. And if you are looking at the meadow, you are not going to find it because it is somewhere else and you are looking somewhere else. The thief is in the forest and you are looking in the meadow, you know. Another example might be, you know, the thief has already run to, you know, LA and you are looking in Albuquerque, you know. So you will not be able to find. And so therefore, so then your meditations, even when you try to meditate on selflessness, emptiness, or selflessness or emptiness, then our meditations cannot become effective because we are missing. We miss the target by not fully understanding the object of negation, not being able to identify fully the object of negations. And so therefore, that is why it's so important to really understand that one, you know, what we're trying to negate, trying to really, and if we don't identify, that is where the problem comes. That is where either you negate, you know, everything's even on conventional level, and then you begin to say nothing, there is nothing, because and then when you say something, then you feel like there is something truly existence, and thereby, you know, and that is when we are unable to identify the object we negated fully, and that is where the confusion comes. And so therefore, that is important here. When we meditate on emptiness, selflessness, for the meditations to be effective, so that it really harms and hurt and destroy the ignorance, we need to really identify and recognize what is being negated, the object that is being negated, which is the object that is being negated is the object that is being apprehended by the ignorance. And so really knowing that, you know, and then I think next one, again, I think why we need to cherish the realization of the emptiness, you know. Once you really understand that, then, you know, once you really understand that, then you begin to see, you know, how all the delusions, how the samsaras, the suffering in the samsara arises from our karma, how the karma arises from our other delusion, how the delusion arises from the fundamental ignorance, and how fundamental ignorance is totally mistaken, totally wrong, and thereby understanding, if you can have the wisdom relaxing the emptiness, how you can overcome that fundamental ignorance. When you really understand deeply, then you understand, oh, it is possible to really overcome all the delusion. It is possible to really free from the samsara and suffering permanently. Then you begin to really feel the so-called nirvana is really possible, you know. Possible. So once you see that possibility, then your true inspirations arises, you know. Otherwise, we say the word, but it doesn't come from deep from our mind. And it is important to and so that is where it is that is where the next one's is saying, yeah. As the root of the text of the wisdom by Nagarjuna, as it says, and there's a root, and then there is the commentary by Lama Tsongkhapa before that. He give the commentary first, and then he give the quotations. Basically, is saying, first there is a grasping or apprehending the object truly or inherently existence, on the basis of that truly or inherently existing objects, and you feel that objects real and true and inherently existence. On the basis of that, then your mind elaborate, your mind elaborate on the basis of that. Then you say, oh, that object is truly attractive. That object is truly unattractive. That object is truly good. That object truly bad. On the basis of that, then either attachment or aversion or anger arises. On the basis of that kind of aversion, anger, then we engage in any action through any of our three doors. So then we create the karma. And then through creating the karma, then we take rebirth in the samsara. And having taken a samsara rebirth, then a lot of suffering come with the package with that. It's part of the package, Getting sick, getting old, dying, and many other is part of that package, samsara rebirth. And all these sufferings and other sufferings comes through that samsara rebirth. And so that samsara rebirth comes from our karma, and the karma is created because of the delusions. And that delusion is created, attachment and anger arises because our mind elaborates, oh, this is nice, this is bad, this is good, this is bad, this is nice, this is beautiful, this is not beautiful, on the basis of that. And that kind of elaboration in mind, this is good, bad, all of that come because of apprehending that object to be inherently good, inherently bad. And so it all comes from that apprehending or grasping the object to be inherently or truly or from its own objectively as a good, bad, all of that. So all coming to that. And so if you can, when you understand that, then you see, and you see, and when you analyze, when you really analyze, then you also see, with the reasoning and logics, you see, in reality, even though ignorance apprehend the object truly inherently, but when you analyze, there's no truly or inherently existing objects at all. When you realize that, then you realize that ignorance is totally mistaken, wrong. And if something's wrong, mistaken, then you know it can be overcome. And when you have that, and so then when you have that wisdom, then you begin to see it can totally negate and destroy the object of that ignorance, and thereby destroy the ignorance itself. And when that ignorance is destroyed, then all the delusions that arises from that is being indirectly destroyed. Delusion doesn't arise, or elaboration of the mind doesn't arise. And when you don't elaborate, this is good, bad, inherently good, bad, and so on that, then there's no attachment, anger arises. And when there's no anger, attachment, other delusion arises, there's no karma to be created. When there's no karma being created, there's no reason to take rebirth in the samsara. And if there is no samsara rebirth, then there is no sufferings of the samsara that comes because of samsara rebirth. And so that is how then samsara can be ended. The suffering can be ended permanently, completely. And so then once you have, then we begin to have a really strong appreciations and really feel then when you really feel it's possible, then it gives you a lot of energy, enthusiasm, it drive. A lot of time we don't have same level of enthusiasm because, well, even the teaching says samsara can be overcome, nirvana is possible, but we don't still feel that, still feel, or maybe it's not possible. Maybe we still feel it's a nice idea, but it's not possible. So then it doesn't give you as much inspiration, enthusiasm, energy. But if you really feel it is possible, then that is what it really gives you, that kind of cherishing, enthusiasm, and encouragement, Mm. And so I think that is, so I guess maybe, so I think maybe we'll leave it here. How to generate the view, realizing the, selflessness. So I think maybe. So we will start maybe next year. I think it is a good place to stop. Okay, again, thank you very much, everyone. Thank you very much for putting up your time, effort, even though sometimes it might be a little bit difficult to understand. And sometimes itself, and sometimes the text itself is a little bit kind of difficult sometimes. And then sometimes on top of that, I make it more difficult. Instead of being able to clarify it, sometimes I might make you more confused. And sometimes it can happen, sometimes there's a root, and commentary is supposed to clarify the root. And sometimes when you read the commentary, it becomes more confused, and the root text seems more easier. It seems like, and then there is another commentaries, and each of those commentaries sometimes become more confused and more difficult, So sometimes, so anyway, so thank you very much, everyone. And definitely we will finish, we have finished most of, so next year, and definitely we will finish that. So again, even we don't understand fully, still going through that is really, really good imprint. As His Holiness, before I always wonder, especially nowadays, His Holiness try to present emptiness and very complicated way sometimes, even to the very new people, even to the people who are not a Dharma practitioner. Like sometimes when he has, nowadays, with the yoga people, or sometimes with the students, he always go deep into the emptiness. And I always wonder why he does that. I always wonder why he does that, because most people, many of people will not understand that unless you have certain. And I'm thinking, because His Holiness is so important, this one, to have realization emptiness is the key. That's the key. So therefore, to have that imprint, even they don't understand it, just to have imprint, I think he feels it's so important that, so, whether they understand it or not, but he want to give them the imprint of that, and all the time, nowadays, always talking about emptiness all the time, regardless of what the subject is of the discussions, and I think, and also one of my friends, Geshe, great practitioner, very humble, simple, from different monastery, Drebung monastery, Geshe Pesang, and one of the top students in the from the monastery. And also he says, when he teach, he try to not to make it easy, because sometimes to make it easy, everything become kind of watered down. To make it easy, watered down, and people understand, but they don't understand deeply. Their understanding is very, very kind of, and so he said whether they like it or not, whether they understand, but he like to go in much deeper and depth, because in long term that is the key. If you are not just for if we are looking for a more profound, deep understanding, and sometimes this text like here, sometimes that is like that. Sometimes if you read a emptiness written by modern authors, it might be much more easier. The presentation might be very, very, very kind of easy to read it, easy to that, but maybe sometimes they might miss some of the very important points, crucial points, and profound points. And I think that is why I think Lama Tsongkhapa is going depth in that, Yeah, okay. I think maybe, okay. So thank you very much, everyone. Thank you. So we do the dedications. Due to the merits of these virtuous actions, may I quickly attain the state of Guru Buddha and lead all living beings without exception into that enlightened state. May the Supreme Jewel Bodhicitta that has not arisen, arise and grow, and may that which has arisen not diminish but increase more and more. The wish-granting, wish-fulfilling jewel, source of every single benefit and happiness in this world, to the incomparably kind Tenzin Gyatso, I beseech, may all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. You who uphold the subdued moral way, who serve as a bountiful bearer of all, sustaining, preserving, and spreading Manjanath doctrines, who masterfully accomplish magnificent prayer, honorary, Joseph, myself, and other your disciples, please live long. So thank you very much, everyone. Thank you. Good night. Thank you.
Thank you.